Today, on this very extravagant episode of Let's Talk Movies, the entire crew went out to go see Captain Marvel, and today you're going to get our thoughts and opinions on the entire thing. From non-spoiler to spoiler review, we're going to get into all of it in this one video. Let's check it out right now. Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm your host, Joker, Jimmy, whatever name fancies you're liking, and this is Alex Splash.
Hey.
Yeah, we're still working on it. Anyway, Jesus.
I'm not working on
it. I thought we'd never get here.
It has felt like forever to get from Infinity War and then Ant-Man and the Wasp to here.
Yeah.
Feels like it's been a lifetime. But I'm so happy that we've finally seen it. We know what we're dealing with heading into Endgame, and this movie, I think, made me rethink some things about how I'm approaching Endgame, which we could talk about in the spoiler portion. But for now, just overall, how did you feel about the movie?
Right. Just so anyone doesn't freak out now, we're going to do this in two separate parts. The first half of this video is going to be non-spoiler, and then when we get into spoiler stuff, we will make it very apparent that we are going to talk about spoilers, in which case you can pause the video, go buy a ticket, go see the movie, come back, hit resume, and watch the rest of it. But overall, how did I feel about the movie? I really enjoyed it. Just straight at face value, right out of the gate, it was a great movie. Especially since I didn't know what to expect going into it. Like, I didn't know exactly how I felt about the character. Like, I knew who Captain Marvel was to an extent. I was never really like, oh, Captain Marvel, I'm so excited. This is a character I've been waiting for like 10 years. No, none of that. But I was so glad that I was introduced to the character in this way, especially when portrayed by Brie Larson. She killed it, I thought.
I think Brie did really well, especially given the circumstances around the movie where it is a transitional piece, kind of. Like, it has to be an origin story, but she has to kind of come as a whole package kind of character, because we are just one step out from Endgame, and we know that this character, if you saw the end of Infinity War,
the after credits of Infinity War showed is like, ooh, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she's supposed to be a major plot point heading in, and I think this movie did a great job establishing that. I think she did a very believable job in selling us on this character. Could be pivotal in the MCU. As far as personality goes, I think the cheekiness really...
Her little snarkiness that she had was so great. It was just really quick-witted humor, and I was just like, I love it.
I think that really shines with certain character relationships. I think that's where I really loved the character the most, was seeing her interact with the Earth world and learn it to a degree. But
yeah, because it wasn't like Thor, where she so much was just what is this strange place? I must destroy everyone's an enemy. She was just kind of like, well, shit, I don't know where I am.
Yeah, I think that helped sell the dynamic for the character for me, because Brie does a good job of just conveying the confusion aspect of it, especially for somebody who's not familiar with Captain Marvel. You really don't know what to expect watching the character.
I had no idea what to expect.
Exactly, and I think in the beginning of the movie, she sells that really well. She doesn't lean into what makes her...
Yeah, I think that was the most important part for me, was figuring out what she is in the beginning. So when, we get to the Earth part of the film, I'm like, okay, now everything makes sense. Now let's get into the story. Because I was just like, I don't know. It's just the whole how do you get from point A to point B thing. Because, you see it in the trailers. You see the movie takes place on Earth. So you're just like, well, A to B, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And then when that part is filled in, you're like, oh, so much sense is now made. I get it now.
But as far as the other people in the movie, I think Monica Rambeau, was that her first name, Monica? Anyway, the actress that plays her, I think they had a great rapport between each other. That felt like the most believable relationship in the movie to me.
Right.
I think the reason that stands out is because I didn't have to buy into anything there. I think the movie sets it up perfectly. They played that off well. Past that, Ben
Mendelsohn crushed it.
Absolutely, just knocked out of the park. I didn't know what to expect from his character because we didn't really get much.
Yeah, we got literally slim to nothing about it. But I will say, a a lot of people were saying like he carried the film. I don't think he carried the film, but I do think that he gave it his all in every scene where he was on screen. He sold his part. He did his job well.
Yeah, I think he definitely handled his responsibilities. Like there's not a portion of his character that I thought was lacking or anything. I think he's one of the strongest, if not the strongest character in the film.
Oh, for sure. And he's just like, it's just good humor all around, like when you least expect it, but it works. It's not like it's thrown in there to be like, oh, that's right, it's supposed to be a comedy or something. It's not like that at all. It's
Guardians 2 was a little bit of that, where everybody got a joke, everybody was passing around something.
It just when it happens, you're just like, that fit the moment.
It was believable.
Yeah, it was just something that it just rolls with it, and it's perfect.
I think the pacing of the film gets off to a pretty good start. Like the beginning portions, maybe if you aren't super familiar with the comic book origin stuff, maybe you're a little lost, maybe that feels a little long. But for somebody who, I have a base understanding of how it all works, I don't know much about the character herself, but the people she was dealing with, I had a small idea of what was going on.
Right.
So that was believable for me. That felt understandable. Really, my only issue with any of the film is that I would have liked to have seen some other characters get more screen time, but that's really my only complaint that I can give about the film entirely. I think
that's fair, and I think I know who you're talking about. We'll get into that in the spoiler part. I think one of the best takeaways from it is that it's so separated yet connected to the rest of the MCU because it takes place in the 90s. If you don't know that, that's not a spoiler. In the trailer, she crashes into a blockbuster. There's your takeaway right there. You know what the time period is. So it's so different from everything else because, we don't have Iron Man yet. We don't have Thor yet. We don't have any of those guys yet. Mm-hmm. So it's just like her, and she's just there by herself. But then, she does have Nick Fury, which is great to see him with both eyes.
Yeah, that was interesting. I had never really thought about what he would look like before the eye patch. And so seeing him in like real on-screen adaptation, both eyes, young Nick Fury, young Phil Coulson as well was interesting to see. But yeah, they did a lot of things really well in this movie. Things that genuinely surprised me.
And I mean, that's the funny thing about it. And the reason I think like they play their character so well is that we're used to seeing Samuel L. Jackson with both eyes. We see him in interviews, we see him in other movies all the time. But as Nick Fury, seeing him with both eyes, you're just like, this is normal. But he's doing it so well that I'm like, it's weird that, what, Yeah. And that's the thing is like, when you can act that well that you don't even have to do anything and people are looking at you like, what the hell? It sells itself.
Yeah, he crushes it. And I think his character has more time to shine here, even more so than maybe I expected him to. And so that really sold me. That was like one of my favorite parts of the film is just seeing Sam Jackson just get to embrace Nick Fury and just be this person. I think worked out fantastically.
Yeah, I mean, just like overall, and the pacing going back and forth a little bit throughout parts of the movie, everything it flows nicely. I did mention it does play out a little differently than the Marvel movies we've seen. Partially just because, this is a true origin story. We have to understand how this character works. So there's a lot of going back and forth. And if you can follow it, it's fine. Now, for me, there's always something wrong with me. The last couple times I've gone to movies, it's like either I have a headache or I end up getting sick in the middle of the film. So it's hard to follow the first time. But like, it's so back and forth, but it's so beautifully played out that it's just like, this is a nice flow to the film. I'm never really bored. It keeps my attention throughout, and it's always just like, oh, so this connects to this, and oh, okay, I see where we're going here.
Yeah, I think the cuts in this movie worked really well. I think they jumped particularly like at really good spots.
And since it is in the 90s, it has such a great soundtrack.
Yeah, I really love the soundtrack. They did a good job.
It's so much fun. Like, I knew every song, and I was just like, yes. And very Guardians-esque.
I could see where people would think that this one was kind of heavy-handed with the nostalgia 90s kind of thing, but at the same time, my counter to that is it takes place in the 90s.
It takes place in the 90s. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. I could see how people would see it as like a fan service type thing, but they did it right. They're not just like, oh, let's play the greatest hits of the 90s because it's appropriate. No, that's just what was on the radio at the time. It is not uncommon to hear those songs. Hearing it now, you're just like, oh man, do you remember that song? I used to listen to that all the time. I'm like, oh wait, that was actually popular on the radio during that time. So, Great.
I will say there are some choices where the music plays and I did not expect it to.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we're getting into this. Okay.
But it was still great at the same time. I was just like, I'm
Yeah, but I
so here
appreciated
for
the
it.
hell out of it. It just surprised me. Where I was like, I would have not picked that song for the scene, but I'm not mad that they did.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's the thing is like, you're worried. You're like, ooh, is this the right song to pick? And then you're like, yeah, it was.
But yeah, that worked. Okay, cool. Awesome.
It's just fantastic overall. But I don't think we can really stretch out any more of this without going into spoilers, unless you have something else you'd like to ask or anything you want to add.
No, I think we should just dive right into spoiler talk. So, like we said, this is the big red sign. Spoilers. If you have not seen the movie, please turn away. Don't let us ruin it. I will say it one more time before we start talking.
Spoilers. 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 Spoilers.
And
not the things you find on the back of cars. Spoilers.
go.
Okay. Holy shit, the cat that eats everything.
The Flerken is real and I love him.
He was the goodest boy.
Goose is the best boy.
But real quick, I want to go from start to finish in the movie with this, but I just have to play when you talk about like picking songs. Gwen Stefani's "Just a Girl" during that fight scene could not have been more perfect.
I loved it.
I heard the dun, 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 dun. I was like, yep, let's do this.
I'm sold. Let's rock. The Nirvana song was what I was hitting at earlier. It's like I would not have picked.
That was very weird, but I was just like, I'm not mad at it either.
Yeah, I was like that works. And that fits the kind of Air Force personality of Carol Danvers.
It does.
I think that matched really well with the tone that they were going for.
But let's start as well as we can piece it together. Let's start at the beginning of the film and just kind of move through it and think what we thought about it. So when I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a jumble going back and forth. It's because we keep getting flashes that she's had a past life on this planet, and then she actually ends up, with the. Is it the Kree or the Skrulls? Which one is she a part of?
She is a part of the Kree.
Okay.
But she sides with the Skrulls.
Right. So yeah, if you somehow missed the spoiler talk, sorry, but we mentioned spoilers. That was a big shock to me because like she gets her powers very differently in this movie than in the comics. I'm pretty sure.
It is different from the traditional comic origin, but also it's similar enough for me to not like look at it as like a travesty of any kind. Like they played it well.
But as the beginning of the movie starts, and we're going back and forth between her life with the Kree and all that, and then we're getting flashes of her life on Earth, and she's like, I can't figure out which one I am. Then we're realizing she was human, but finding out like how she gets her powers from Mar-vel in this version, and then we can see when the movie goes back between her time with the Kree and then her time on Earth and how it all plays together. You're like, which one was it first? Was she Kree, but she had like a split personality or something? But no, she was an actual human in the Air Force, Carol Danvers. Then she got blasted from Mar-vel, and then she got her power. She was taken back to the planet, turned into that military type woman that she was. And then we find out, the Skrulls are not the bad guys. Or at least they're not supposed to be, I guess. I'm not sure.
They are traditionally like the bad guys. So in most era of the Marvel kind of Kree Skrull storyline, we do get the idea that the Kree are the ones trying to stop the Skrulls. In this version, I liked the twist, because that's how you keep people guessing. You keep people on their toes. Is we were all going into it assuming that like there was the reports that Jude Law was supposed to be Mar-vel, and then there was some stuff later on saying that maybe he wasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a different character. And so then that started like, oh, is Jude Law going to be a Skrull? Like there was a whole lot of bouncing around of who's going to be what, where are the powers coming from, where does this start?
Yep.
And so I have seen a lot of like a flashback on the idea that the Skrulls are the good guys in this universe, just because it eliminates the idea of like, oh, what if like Falcon or Bucky or somebody had been a Skrull all along and infiltrated the Avengers. But really, that's fan fiction. Like, we had nothing to suggest that. And it would have been a cool like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. storyline to find out that like somebody had infiltrated, the higher levels of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers or whatever, and found out that they were a Skrull. Like, okay, that makes things interesting. That's a cool little twist that you could have done. But that's not completely out of the question. Like, people could still go rogue. Like,
I mean, yeah, and of course, and that's why I think that it's an important thing to realize is like you need to figure it out now, because I mean, this phase is about to end. and we're about to get a whole slew of new stuff. And I assume we'll probably get a sequel to Captain Marvel.
I would think so. I mean, it seems like it's going to open to pretty good numbers. I think it did 20 million on just Thursday night as it opened.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign, especially since you're probably not getting a lot of the school-age kids out on Thursday to go see it. It's mostly the adult fan base that are going to be out. I still may go back and see it a second time.
I kind of want to, honestly.
Yeah, I think I have enough to go back on because there's stuff at the beginning when the Skrulls are examining her brain. I'd like to hear that dialogue in the context of knowing that they aren't trying to hurt or gain like harmful information.
Yeah, they're just trying to
piece
find
everything together.
They're trying to go through her mind, like she very much is throughout the film, trying to piece herself together to find Mar-Vel's like secret lab that's orbiting Earth, so they could, because she just has all of them hostage in there, and I'm just like, what the hell? And then she just turns out to be a complete badass. I mean, when she breaks free of that ship, you know, she's like dangling upside down. She's just like, okay. And then she just beats the shit out of everyone. It's fantastic. And then, you know, she crashes into Blockbuster. And that's what I was talking about. Like, her presence on Earth doesn't feel like alien very much. Because, you know, like she knocks on the rent-a-cop's door. She's like, are you in charge of security for this sector? He's like, yeah, where can I find communications technology? He points to a Radio Shack.
That was good. That
and she just takes apart the phone and like wires it in so she can talk like it's nothing. I'm like, great. And then when Nick Fury and Coulson show up, they're like, heard about someone crashed through that Blockbuster video over there and said she looked like she was dressed for laser tag. She goes, oh yeah, she went that way. Not just like, not like, you know, Thor would be like, are you like dishonoring my robes or something like that? She's like, oh yeah, she went that way.
So with Yarog, Jude Law's character, they felt kind of human anyway. Obviously, the Star Squadron, or Star Force, I think is what they're called.
Yeah, Star Force.
They kind of had some kind of unnatural alien something to them. We'd already seen Korath from Guardians, Jimon Hansu's character, the black guy.
Okay, yeah.
We'd already seen him before, so we knew that he's, at least in the future version of him, it's like he's vaguely human, like he operates on kind of the same level. But with her coming to Earth after already being human, I think that's where people are confusing some of the tone of the movie. Like, I watched Collider's spoiler review of it last night after we got home.
Okay.
And John Roca, who loved the guy, think he's fantastic, he was like, this didn't feel like an origin story. It didn't feel like it had any arc to her character, because she's a badass at the beginning and she's just more of a badass at the end. My counter to that would be, this wasn't supposed to be her coming into her power origin story. Sure, she's embracing the full side of her power, but we've seen her. She's training with Jude Law. She's been communicating with the Supreme Intelligence. Mm-hmm. She's fully set in this Kree world after having these powers for, was it 6 years? Is that what the timeline is? So that's 6 years of her trying to control this thing and trying to come into her own with it. We're seeing the specific arc of her finally making that step. This wasn't an origin story as much as it was a precursor to something bigger.
I was going to say, I would still argue that it is an origin story, but it's not like one we've seen before. It's not the origin of finding your powers and figuring out how they work. It's the origin of remembering that I'm human and remembering the life I supposedly had.
Yeah, this is a story of
So it's like an origin story, just backwards, kind of.
This is a discovery of origin.
The discovery of a superhero who realizes she's human. Kind of.
Kind of. It's like this wasn't meant to be Spider-Man 1 getting bit by the spider, Tobey Maguire sitting on top of a building doing this.
Go, Web, go!
Yeah, it's like that's not what this was ever going to be. We were going into this knowing that something had happened, because we knew that some of these were presented as flashbacks or alternate life kind of situations. So I think it was implied pretty heavily going into the movie that this wasn't going to be like Bree just got her powers and now she's trying to figure this out. It's like from pretty much scene 1, we see that she has this power within her. And so it's native to her side of the universe that this is what she can do. She's just being, we find out later, limited to what she can do. That patch in her neck obviously had something to do with the controlling of her powers and her being able to fully embrace it, because I think they truly did fear what she could do with it. And so that was more of the story for me. That was the arc that I saw in the character was she's unsure of who she is. She's not inhuman because, I mean, she had a whole human life. So when she comes back to those memories, there are certain things that would be native to her, even on the Kree land. Like she's fully involved in that. but she does come from a human background.
Right. I think she would play it more to the Hulk side of Marvel in the sense of just like, you were human and then it was somewhat of a mutation. I mean, yeah, you can go even with Spider-Man too, because, she gets hit with the blast wave and I guess it doesn't necessarily like change her DNA, but it infuses in her body, giving her those astral abilities that she has.
And it's almost comparable to what we're seeing with Tom Holland, where he's really figuring out how to be a hero now, even though we didn't see.
Yeah, we skipped that origin completely of him getting bitten by the spider, and like we've seen like snippets of like his like the hoodie with the goggles that he made, but we never actually like saw that in full force.
And so we're seeing the maturation process. This is something that, even though his is very much about being like how to not be selfish and risky and play by the rules in Homecoming, but in Far From Home, it looks like he's going to be out on his own a little bit. He's going to have to take some of those risks. Nick Fury does show up, so we'll have to see how that figures into it all.
Yeah.
But in this side of things for Captain Marvel, it does kind of feel that that's where she's at. We know she's a badass. Like, she comes from the Kree side. That's what we're supposed to believe coming into the movie, is that she is full on Kree, and like
everyone's expecting her to take out Thanos.
It's like just by bloodline, she's supposed to be strong. Like, the Kree people are not weak by any means.
Yeah. So
that already helps play into who she is. But then finding out that she was a human who absorbs the blast of the what did they call it? Was it an engine for the?
It was like a power energy core or something.
Yeah,
of the light speed engine.
So the Tesseract is the actual engine itself, and that's what makes everything move. There was, whenever she blew up, whatever that was, the engine of that machine.
Yeah.
I think they gave it a specific name. I'm failing to remember it now. But when she absorbs that power, like, yeah, that should amplify the story. Like, you should see, like, oh, so that's where that came from. But if they were so scared of Mar-vel, which I think that was a great reveal too. I think showing that character and not Jude Law, which is what everybody's head was, I think that was an excellent way to spin the story around as well. But her having that power and you realizing something that powerful is what's so latent inside her body that she can shoot these fire beams out of her hands.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, absolutely. There should be a way to embrace that. But what I was saying earlier to the point of I'm rethinking my approach to Endgame now, like I said to you last night, I'm not convinced that this is going to be such a fight for in Endgame. I don't think it's going to be like Captain Marvel and the rest of the Avengers specifically like in a fight against Thanos.
I still think it is.
I think that there's going to be an element of that. I'm sure they're going to want some kind of vengeance kind of thing, but I'm still 90% on like this is going to be a recovery of their friends and the people that they lost, and that light speed travel is going to have something to do with that. Maybe some kind of time-shifting event, something going back. And maybe that's where the fight comes from. She goes back in time to fight him while he still has the gauntlet. I could see that. But the version of Thanos that we saw at the end of Infinity War, that guy seemed content. And he doesn't have the gauntlet. This would be a wash. Like, Captain Marvel would blast his ass to another universe.
Until we get another trailer, I can't really say anything. And I don't think we're getting another trailer.
We might get something closer to the day of, get some TV spot, like...
I was like, we'll probably get a TV. I don't think we're going to get another full-on trailer for Endgame, though.
I think if you can include Captain Marvel in there somehow with a TV spot or something, that's probably like the next big push.
Yeah, we'll probably get a TV spot. Like, I don't think we're getting another like 2-minute trailer or anything.
I
like
wouldn't
that.
expect to, but I would love it because I would like to know if that.
Yeah, I want to know more. That's the reason like I like those trailers. I want the story trailers to know what it is I should be looking for when I go to this movie. I don't like going into a movie blind. Like. They put out like 16 trailers for Captain Marvel, it felt like. There was like TV spots and stuff and like footage every other day.
But there was also a lot of just reused footage in that.
Right, and it was a lot of reused footage, but I watched it and I was still just like, I just don't know what the hell's going on. And it kind of helped me going into this movie. I probably would have enjoyed it more the first time had I known a little bit more. But I still loved it. I'm not saying that the experience of the movie was a letdown because I didn't know about the characters. Just, in those cases, sometimes I need to know more so I know like what I should be looking for. But moving forward, and then they figured out that Mar-vel is kind of like trying to like just ruin people's the Skrulls' lives apparently, and then because she's got them all trapped on that laboratory because
they were hiding there. It wasn't really that they were trapped,
right? But they couldn't do anything because they Ben Mendelsohn's character, his like wife, I guess is what it was supposed to be. It was like said, like you said, like not to send any signal or else Mar-vel would know about it. And they're like, yeah, you did the right thing to not say anything. But because the whole time he's trying to search to find them.
No, don't say anything because the Kree would find it. It wasn't Mar-vel's character. She was trying to help them get away. She was trying to help them find a new place.
It seemed wacky, and I need to watch it again because half of it doesn't make a lot of sense in that area just because I'm not familiar with all the species and shit. But The coolest part of that movie has got to be when she changes the color of her suit.
I loved that. That was so good.
Changes it to like all the neon colors. I was like, keep that one.
The neon one was really cool. I think that was a beautiful way to go about the redesigning of the Captain Marvel outfit that she looked like she's going to be donning moving forward in the MCU. I think that was a great way for her to look down, and that it's Jordan, was that the name of Rambo's daughter?
I have no idea.
But you look down and it's just like, hey, we're on the same side, so you do the honors.
See, I thought it was going to be something like at the end of the movie, they're like Nick Fury's going to be like, oh, we made this for you, or something, one of those things where they made it. No, she just straight looks at her wrist, touches a touchpad, and just changes the color like 7 times. I was like, okay. Ooh, okay.
And I like that because that's another one of those moments where they got to embrace how far along these alien races are compared to the 90s on Earth.
You don't need to make them a new suit. You can just be like, let me just change the color real quick.
But yeah, we would have had like some Howard Stark stuff around at that point, but compared to what they were doing, that wouldn't have been anything, really.
All right, and then the Tesseract being like a main part of the storyline was like pretty, I wasn't expecting it, but it does make sense.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. So the twist was genuine when they revealed it. I was like, oh, that tracks really well, actually. I never would have considered it. But with Goose swallowing the Tesseract, I thought that was hilarious.
That cat just, I don't know what the hell that was.
The Flerken, man, they're dangerous.
Apparently, everyone's just like, he's like, Ben Mendelsohn's character's like, you don't know what you're dealing with, you need to get that away. I'm like, it's a cat. What are you, the mummy? You're afraid of cats? And then it just like turns into Cthulhu and swallows like 16 people, and I'm like, oh, Samuel Jackson's holding the cat like,
excuse me?
What? Yeah. And then it just swallows the Tesseract.
I thought that was fun. I don't know that, like, I don't think we needed that final end credit scene with the cat, like.
Right, well, let's talk about those end credits. So the movie ends, great ending, I think. It worked out just nicely. Actually, we back up just a little bit. We're skipping over the main entrances was Ronan.
Ronan's one of my 2 complaints of the movie. I don't think that Ronan and Coulson were used well.
Yeah, Coulson was used literally about 3 times on screen, it felt like.
I feel like for how much they were like, oh, Coulson's back, I would have liked to see him, but that's also because I'm an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, and so like getting more Coulson content.
No, I mean, even regardless, Coulson's just a great character.
But his character really gets like explored more. And so if I could have seen a little bit more of that younger, wet behind the ears Coulson, I would have loved to see that. But his impact in the film, even though he's not used a lot, it's used to a point. Like it accomplishes what it should do.
It does what it needs to, but it is still kind of sad that his character was short-lived in the movie.
Yeah, it's like he does kind of just disappear at one point and then you don't see him again, which it makes sense. Like he wasn't in the cosmic aspect yet. Like he wasn't quite ready for that.
And then again with Ronan, I was so confused because I was like, okay, Ronan's in here. That's interesting. That ties into Guardians. It's the 90s. He should be there. You know, he hasn't fought the Guardians yet. But then it just makes no sense. He's there and he's just like, we fucked up. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I think they could have held on to that for probably like sequel territory. Ronan, like those guys coming in and actually trying to mount an attack.
See, and I'm wondering if that's like if that's going to turn into a sequel of her fighting Ronan before he fights the Guardians, or I don't know, because he said we'll be back here soon. And they're like, for the weapon, he says no, for the girl. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay.
I'm sure it will turn into something because Ronan, he had plenty of room. It's not like Guardians limited to what he could be.
Right.
He could have these separate interactions across different periods of the time because, I mean, well, actually, when does the Guardians fight happen?
Don't ask me. I don't know.
We'd have to look into that. I'd like to see what the timeline compares in that situation because there's a lot of flashback stuff that's happening in Guardians as well. That way, like, you could tie something in from like the end of, let's say if we do get Guardians 3 at a reasonable time before Captain Marvel 2, you could do another like post-credits Ronan something leading into it.
Yeah.
So that'd be fun little speculation. But yeah, that character entry, I was like, oh cool, Ronan's getting involved. But about 3/4 of the way through the movie, I was like, how are they going to work Ronan into this thing? Because he kind of just disappeared.
He had like 3 minutes of screen time, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, they could have saved that. I don't think that was done exceptionally well.
Yeah, I don't understand the point of that. But then, you know, the movie ends, great ending, great credit colors, like the shots they had in the credits were just beautiful.
Those were really good.
And then we finally get to what everyone was waiting for, the end credit scene, and we get the pager that Nick Fury gave to her and she modified it and gave it back. She's like, here, use this for emergencies only.
I think that was a great scene too.
And then he just puts it in his pocket and just thinks nothing of it.
When she takes the communicator and says, you can't be trusted with this, I think that was a great way to turn around the whole pager thing.
Yeah.
Just those kind of things are what I think really sold the movie for me. And then, yes, heading into that end screen where you finally see it again, it's been buzzing for...
Yeah, so it's hooked up to a machine trying to like get the battery going, because it is just a modified pager. And it's sending out the signal for Captain Marvel, and then it just dies. And then we get Steve Rogers sitting there. I thought it was going to play out like the trailer for Endgame where...
Ant-Man, Paul
Ant-Man, yeah, Paul Rudd's character just shows up and he's like, Ant-Man, you want to let me in? I thought I was going to do it. I was like, okay, cool, but what the hell? And then, Black Widow's there too, and then Bruce Banner walks in, he's like, it just stopped. I don't know what the problem is. And then they're like, keep it running, let us know if anything happens. And then we turn around and Captain Marvel's literally right there and she just says, where's Fury? And I'm like, oh shit, that was fast.
And it depends, like we don't actually get to see how long it was from the snapping to that scene.
I imagine it was like a day or so.
It seems like they've been sitting on that grief for a while. So I don't know. I would expect at least several days to have passed.
And I'm thinking I would not be opposed for them using the end game or the end credit scene in the movie to continue on like what happens, because that seems like that's an important part of that movie. I would not be mad if if that whole scene was part of the movie and then some.
Yeah, because especially releasing this close to Endgame, you can't expect everyone to go from seeing Infinity War and Captain Marvel into this one.
Right. So even if you saw Infinity War, skip Captain Marvel, then go see Endgame, and she's just there already, you're gonna be like, did I miss something?
Yeah, and so I think having that scene, I think that could be a great connector. And also, even if you've just seen the trailers for Captain Marvel, you'll still kind of get the character a little bit, because obviously you won't know everything if you've skipped Captain Marvel, but you will at least get the gist of the character. And so I think they'd be fine opening the Earthbound Avengers, the ones that are still there versus like Tony who's in the spaceship or whatever.
Yeah.
If they cut on their part and that's like their first scene or whatever, I would not be mad at that at all.
I mean, I think it'd be fine. Well, I think we're gonna get I think it's gonna open with some news broadcasting talking about like the devastation of it. We'll probably get a little bit of some back stuff, just some refreshers.
I'm sure we'll get something, but I think it could all just happen inside that facility.
I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be very minute.
The Avengers facility, all that happening in the background while they're trying to solve the pager thing. I could see them doing that. That'd be okay.
And then if right before the second end credit scene at the very end, when it's just Goose hopping on Nick Fury's desk and hawking up the fucking Tesseract, he's in there like working on the initiative for the Avengers. And that was the coolest thing, because Coulson walks in with a thing of eyeballs. He's like, which one? He's just like, oh, I'm not doing that. And that's how we know he's going to get the eye patch, because he gets his head bashed up in the beginning of the film in that car accident. And then, so I was like, is that how he's going to lose his eye? Like the car accident? But then his eye's just kind of swollen. And then when he's messing around with Goose gets mad and scratches his eye. And it like ends up getting swollen. So I'm like, oh, so he doesn't necessarily lose his eye. It's not going to work anymore. The cat scratched it. It's not a cat. It's a demon.
Well, I think Ben Mendelsohn's character asked him, or somebody asked
him. Yeah, he was like, it's going to be okay. And he's like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
So and I thought that was fantastic too, because so Coulson walks out and he kind of moves it away and he's working. What was it? What was it called? The Project Initiative?
No, it was the.
I'm pretty sure it was Project. It was a very basic word. And then he saw that picture of Carol Danvers.
Protectors Initiative or something like that?
I'm not sure what it was, but I wasn't paying attention. Because at the point, he starts looking at the picture of Carol Danvers climbing into her jet, and it has her name, Carol Avenger Danvers.
This is their call sign for the Air Force.
So he backs it out, and then you don't see him type in, but he's backing out to put the Avengers Initiative, and you're just like, awesome. Then they play the Avengers fanfare. It was great, and then you're set for Endgame after the end credit scenes.
I would love if we cut back to that laptop sometime after Endgame and it just says like the Danvers Initiative and the Avenger thing comes way later for a different reason. I mean, that'd be hilarious.
That would be good. My
other issue that we've talked about, like I wish that the Star Force people would have had a little more time to shine. I think their characters could have been a little more well developed, a little more relationship between them. Minor nitpick, not that important. It just would have been cool to see the villains, who you're supposed to believe are the good guys in the beginning, have that kind of payoff, like turn moment. But it's fine, it didn't necessarily need it. The one thing that did take away from the movie a little bit for me, I didn't like the name Veers coming from Carol Danvers.
I mean, it makes sense because they find her busted dog tag and it says Carol Dan, I guess, and because the verse was cut off. And I guess with their alien language, they're thinking Veers, and they're just gonna call her that because what else are they gonna call her? Prisoner 32187 or whatever.
It felt odd to me. It felt like the old Aaron Reich, Han Solo,
I didn't think it was that bad. I was just like, okay, I can roll with it. It's a minor thing because they're going to call her Veers, but we know she's Carol Danvers and she's Captain Marvel.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not like a super detraction from the movie. It was just the one thing that I was like, I feel like that could have been done differently. It's my one gripe, really, that with the story aspect of it.
The only reason I would disagree is just because of how her dog tag being busted in two played into the rest of the film, which is the only reason I'll give it the okay. So I'm not too concerned because that's the only time they're going to say that, because now she's Carol Danvers again. She's Captain Marvel. She's a badass and she's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, loved the film. Everything about it really
Yeah,
worked.
Overall, it was a great film. I do want to see it again.
I think I do want to, just for the experience of knowing how the twist is going to happen, I think that'll actually impact a little bit of how we process the beginning of the film.
I agree.
I think there may be some things hidden in the Yarog dialogue and the first meeting with the Supreme Intelligence that might play a little bit more to her background than we may have caught the first time. Don't know that for sure. It just kind of feels like it in my head. But yeah, because the only small gripe with it is that I would have liked to see the name thing have been done differently, but doesn't take away from the fact that I loved this movie. I think really this was the perfect way to walk into Endgame, especially if it's not going to be this all-out fight against Thanos. If there's going to be more of a desperation and utility to it versus just like what we saw in Wakanda, which was just an actual
all-out war, yeah.
Yeah, if we're going with a more grief-ridden Avengers team,
I think it's still going to be a fight. I'm pretty sure they're good, but I think they're going to bring it to Thanos.
I guess, but like I said, with the busted gauntlet, I don't know. That's not going to be much of a fight.
I mean, it's not the only gauntlet. I'm pretty sure he can get another one, but we'll figure that out.
I guess we'll see.
We got a little over a month before that movie comes out, so we've got time to speculate between now and then. But I think that's all we've got to say for Captain Marvel today. Yeah. Unless you got something else to add.
I'm done, man. Spoke my piece. I love the movie.
Hopefully, if you've come this far, you've actually seen the movie and weren't spoiled by any of this. Overall, fantastic movie. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I could say 8 for sure.
For a first-time viewing, I say 8 out of 10 is great. Probably see it maybe 1 or 2 more times. Just depends on if my bank account will allow it.
Oh, my bank account will definitely allow another one. Third one we can talk about, but a second one's fine.
It's fine. But if you like what you saw, let us know. Do you like Captain Marvel? Have you seen it yet? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Let us know in the comments. We want to know. We want to talk about it. But that'll be all for this week's episode of Let's Talk Movies. If you like what you saw, leave a like, comment, subscribe. We love that kind of stuff. And we will see you guys next week.